It's time for our read aloud, and my special guest today is Nala. Say hi, Nala. Say hi to the kids. She's probably not going to stay on my lap this entire time because she's a little excited right now, but I wanted her to be in the video so you guys can see. She's getting pretty big. She's a really good dog, and she's enjoying us being home because she gets to go on a couple different walks every day. But she's a really, really, really well-behaved puppy, because sometimes puppies can be pretty excited and hyper, but she is pretty well-behaved. So we're going to continue today with The Wild Robot Escapes. And if you remember yesterday, Roz just arrived at this farm called Hilltop Farm. The truck, she was in a crate again, and the truck drove her there. And then she was activated by a man named Mr. Sharif. So here we go. We're on chapter 4 called The Family. Welcome to Hilltop Farm, Roz. My name is Mr. Sharif. You belong to me now. Roz studied the man with her softly glowing eyes, and in a robotic voice she said, "Hello, Mr. Sharif." "This old fella here is Oscar." Mr. Sharif scratched his dog's head. "You won't see much of him. Oscar spends most of his time sleeping in the house." "Hello, Oscar," said the robot. A goofy grin stretched across the dog's face, and he let out a happy yelp. Mr. Sharif pulled out a small computer from his pocket. He tapped the screen and brought up a map of Hilltop Farm. "There you are, Roz," he said as the robot's electronic signal appeared on the map. "You'll be working all over this farm. And now that you're in the system, I can always see right where you are." "What would you like me to do?" said Roz. "You can start by putting your crate in the garage over there. I'll hold on to it in case I ever have to send you back to the factory." Clearly, Roz was designed to take orders because her body automatically did as she was told. She stuffed the packing materials into her crate and carried it into the garage. When Roz returned, Mr. Sharif was watching a school bus winding along up the country road. Oscar barked and dashed off as the bus came to a stop at the bottom of the driveway. A girl and a boy jumped out, and the bus drove on. In their matching school uniforms, the children looked almost identical. But the boy was a little taller, and the girl's hair was a little longer. They meandered up the driveway and romped around with their dog until they noticed Roz. "A robot!" said the girl, running up. "It's about time we got one," said the boy. "She's refurbished," said the man. "She's the cheapest one I could find, but she'll make a decent farmer." You guys know what refurbished means? It means basically a machine that was broken and was remade to work again. So that's why Roz was so cheap, because she was a refurbished robot. "What's her name?" asked the girl. "She said her name's Roz." "That's just her starter name," said the boy. "We can give her any name we want. Let's call her Farmbot." "I kind of like the name Roz," said the girl. "Me too," said Mr. Sharif. "Let's leave her name as it is. Roz, I'd like you to meet my daughter, Jaya, and my son, Jad." "Hello, Jaya and Jad," said the robot. The children looked at each other and smiled. "Will Roz take orders from me?" asked Jad. "What about me?" asked Jaya. "She'll take orders from both of you." "Roz, I order you to do my homework," said Jaya. "Don't waste her time with nonsense," Mr. Sharif grumbled. "Roz is here to do farm work, not homework, understand?" The children nodded. "Now, I order you kids to bring the dog inside and do your own homework," said Mr. Sharif. "I need to show Roz the farm." So here's the little Sharif family. Mr. Sharif, Jaya, Jad, and Oscar. Chapter 5, The Farm. Mr. Sharif turned and shouted, "Come here, Rambler." A moment later, a big pickup truck automatically rolled out from the garage. The truck pulled up to the man and the robot. Its doors opened wide, and they both climbed in. Rambler had a steering wheel, but Mr. Sharif sat back and let the truck drive itself. So it seems like whatever time period this book's taking place, a lot of these machines and cars, they just work automatically. No one is controlling them. They followed the driveway behind the house, across the backyard, past trees and hedges, and suddenly they were surrounded by farm buildings. The buildings were different sizes and shapes, all white walls with gray roofs. And they were so tightly packed together that you could hardly tell where one building ended and the next one began. Some were spattered with mud. Others had holes and loose boards. The entire place smelled like grass and manure. Mr. Sharif pointed out each building to Roz. There was the enormous dairy barn, the milking parlor, the workshop, the machine shed. Smaller sheds were scattered all around. Rambler drove out from the buildings and down the backside of the hill into a wide sweep of farmland. A fence lined this part of the driveway, and behind the fence was a sprawling, rolling pasture, lush with tall grass and a few leafy trees, where a herd of cows were grazing. The cows swished their tails and chewed their cud and followed the truck with their eyes. One of them let out a long moo. "This is a dairy farm," said Mr. Sharif, "so these cows are the queens around here. Your whole world now revolves around them, okay?" "I understand," said Roz, as she stared at a young calf who was staring right back at her. They rolled past the herd of cows, past clumps of wildflowers, past a quiet pond, past birds and field mice and bumblebees. The driveway cut through a row of trees on its way out to the crop fields, which were flat and square and covered with bright green sprouts. Hilltop Farm was bursting with life, but it had seen better days. Patches of weeds and bare dirt were spreading across the fields. Broken down farm machines and piles of junk were strewn across the grounds. Thick tangles of brush were creeping in from the edges of the property. They drove all the way out to the farthest fields, to a little roundabout at the very end of the driveway. Rambler shut off its engine, and the man and the robot sat and looked at the countryside. Far off, where the land met the sky, a train quietly slid across its tracks and disappeared to the north. Then all was still. "This farm needs help," said Mr. Sharif at last. "It's been in my family for generations, and I don't want to lose it. But I can't do farm work anymore, not with this bad leg. That's why you're here. They say Razum robots can learn to do almost every kind of job. And you'll have to do almost every kind of job on this farm." "I understand," said Roz. "We've had auto machines for ages," Mr. Sharif went on, "but we didn't need a robot until my wife died." Those last words hung in the air for a while. The silence was finally broken by a low rumble of thunder. A storm was approaching. Tornado season was still months away, but in farm country, any storm could become dangerous. "Let's go home," said Mr. Sharif. Rambler started its engine and drove back up the long driveway. By the time they reached the farm buildings, a steady rain was falling, and the cows were in the barn. "This is for you," said Mr. Sharif, and he handed Roz her own computer. "That controls the farm's equipment, and it's got all the information you'll need to work here. Do you know how to use a computer?" "Yes, I know how to use a computer." Roz had never used a computer before, but she instinctively knew what to do. Clearly, the robot was designed to work with technology. "Study up tonight and start farming tomorrow," said Mr. Sharif. "You can stay in the machine shed with the other machines." "Perhaps I should stay in the barn with the cows," said Roz. "My whole world now revolves around them." The man smirked and he said, "I like the way you think, Roz." We'll stop there. Can already tell that the setting of this book is a lot different than the first Wild Robot, right? The setting of this book so far has been on a farm and not the wilderness. So we'll see what happens. I wonder why Roz would want to sleep with the cows. Think about that, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.